For many families, when we talk about Roth conversions, it's a way of how to control when and how your wealth is taxed. Hello and welcome to Money and Meaning. My name is Matt Landon, and today we are going to dig into a topic that gets a ton of attention, but not always the right kind, and that is Roth conversions. Now, they're not just about paying taxes to save later. For many families, when we talk about Roth conversions, it's a way of how to control when and how your wealth is taxed. So what happens is with the new law in place, it's time to revisit this strategy and really look and see if this fits into long-term planning the same way, and maybe revisit that long-term plan and look at it. So let's start with the basics. A Roth conversion involves transferring funds from a pre-tax account like a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k, like a pre-tax fund, into a Roth IRA. So what happens is you're paying income on that money you're transferring, the money you convert. But from that point forward, the growth is tax-free, so are the withdrawals, as long as the rules are met. So you're trading a known small tax bill today for potential of tax freedom, a lifetime of tax freedom later. One other key thing to keep in mind is when you have families that expect higher income in the future or want to pass assets to in a more tax efficient way, this can be a really powerful impact. The unknown factor is we don't know exactly what's going to happen with tax rates in the future. And you can see that under kind of my second point here, which is how the law has changed. So under the old rules from the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, today's lower tax brackets were set to expire after this year, 2025. The assumption for years was that rates were going to rise in 2026 unless Congress stepped in. Well, Congress did step in. So the one big beautiful bill, which was passed earlier this year, made many of those lower tax brackets permanent. The 10, 12, 22, 24, 32, 35, and 37% brackets aren't scheduled to revert back to higher levels. This means that use it or lose it kind of rush to complete conversions before 2026 isn't the same as it was. But it doesn't mean the opportunity's gone, it's just changed. And one of the key things I want to say here is what makes Roth conversions valuable? Well, it's twofold. One of them is even with rates standing steady, conversions can solve several problems for high net worth family. Firstly, they give you control. Required are minimum distributions, those RMDs. They start at age 73. They can push you into higher tax brackets. They can even raise your Medicare premiums. So converting before then lets you choose when to recognize income instead of being forced to recognize income at a set point. The second thing is Roth accounts can reduce your future tax exposure. If tax policy changes again, which I would argue it likely will, it's just a matter of when, or if your income rises in retirement due to either investment growth, business income, or RMDs forcing you to take more income, you've already paid that tax today if you do a Roth conversion. You've gone ahead and locked in a set tax rate now as opposed to an unknown tax bill in the future. The fourth point I want to make here is when it comes to Roth conversions, we really want to be strategic about this. This is not an all or nothing policy or approach. The key here is you want to approach these Roth conversions deliberately, not all at once. Oftentimes we map out like multi-year conversion plans, filling up tax brackets one year after another without spilling in the next one. It's controlled, it's predictable, it's coordinated, without other moving parts like charitable gifts, business income, or investment sales. For clients with philanthropic goals, pairing Roth conversions with a donor advised fund contribution can offset part of that cost. If you have capital losses inside of like a privately held business, what happens is when you layer that Roth conversion with other things, and you look at it not in isolation or with blinders on and only look at your tax brackets, but you also consider IRMA. Where are you going to fall under Medicare? Your Medicare limits are going to be slightly different than maxing out that tax bracket limit. When you look at your deductions, and are you doing a standard deduction? Are you doing an itemized deduction? With the other act of the big beautiful bill, you've got an accelerated or an enhanced standard deduction if you're over the age of 65. So what impact is that Roth conversion going to have on this? Is it still worth doing? I'm not saying to or not to do it. I'm saying you need to look at it, run the numbers, and see what makes sense for you, not just this April, but moving forward. Because the reality is this: when you do a Roth conversion, you're likely going to raise your taxes this year. What happened is you're taking on more taxable income. Your tax brackets are you're pushing it up higher. Your average rate is going to go up. But are we not just looking at this April? Are you looking at next April, 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future? The impact from a beneficiary standpoint, it can be very powerful and very valuable to do those Roth conversions, but you have to run the numbers and see what makes sense and make sure that if it's a positive, it's actually a positive. I know Tylenol's been in the news a lot. And the reality is this: if you have aches and pains, a couple of Tylenol can help you out quite a bit. But if you take the entire bottle at once, that's not going to be a good thing. This is something that was helpful. Now it's not. And it's the same thing when you think about Roth conversions. If I said, oh, take one pill every day, and you go, I don't want to remember to do that. I'll just do 30 now and I won't have to take any for a month. We know that's crazy. But when we do Roth conversions, some people think, well, I'll just do it all now as opposed to taking a more measured approach. And I would argue it's important to make sure you take that measured approach. So even though tax rates are not set to spike in 2026, the Roth conversation, I would say it's still very much alive. It's just more about timing and intention than it is around urgency. So for high net worth families, the goal isn't to avoid taxes entirely. There's a big difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion. We can't evade taxes, but if we can avoid paying unnecessary taxes, that's what we want to do. So it's really about deciding not just are we trying to avoid taxes that we have to pay? No, we know we have to pay a certain amount. It's to decide when and how to pay those taxes in a way that preserves flexibility, minimizes risk, and protects your legacy. So if you're wondering whether a Roth conversion makes sense for you or how to design one that aligns with your broader plan, that's the exact kind of conversation that we have with our clients every day. And so I hope that you're looking at those numbers. If you have questions, you can talk with an advisor. But thank you so much for joining me for Money and Meaning. My name is Matt Landon. Thank you. Have a beautiful day.